Family says Shoba's cross-examination showed he's not remorseful for the pain he caused them. Our reporter Slindelo Masikane has been following court proceedings at the High Court in Johannesburg. She joins us now for an update to just keep us up to speed with today's developments. So, Slindelo, I saw that much of the mid-morning was dominated by the closing arguments of Ntuthuko Shoba's legal representatives. How would you sum up what their main points are in trying to counter what arguments and evidence has been presented by the state?
Tulas, before we get to much of what happened inside court, I am joined by the uncle of Tshegofatso Pule, just to give us a quick reaction with regards to how they're feeling. It's been 4 weeks of us coming to this high court almost every single day. The state has wrapped up its case. The defense has wrapped up their case. How is the family feeling at this point?
Look, it's been very heavy emotionally on us. But I think from the look of things, the end is very nigh. At this point in time, we are still hopeful that we're going to get conviction out of this because there's been a lot of questions that were surrounding this case. Even after Malepane's plea and conviction, we didn't have much detail as to what was happened or what has happened after Tshegofatso left Shoba's residence. Though we had our suspicion that he could be involved somehow, but those were not suspicions that you can just throw willy-nilly. But now, as facts presented themselves in court, those suspicions were confirmed. Yeah, but it's been very heavy on us. Yeah.
Are you satisfied with the work that has been done by the state? I mean, the defense did bring up a lot of issues around how maybe the investigations were conducted.
I am satisfied. I remember even when you do an investigation, you can't cast an open, wide net. There will be certain leads that will lead you for you to concentrate on certain aspects of the investigations. I mean, I think even the judge was very clear on that point. So I am quite satisfied and comfortable with the way state has first prepared for the case, presented the case, and even their closing arguments. Yeah.
And this may be a bit difficult to answer, but if Tshegofatso may have still been alive, if she's possibly watching this case, how do you think she's feeling right now?
I think she's very relieved at how the proceedings have been unfolding. And I think what she will need for whoever is responsible for her death to account.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that is the uncle of Tshegofatso Pule there, Tulas, just giving us a sense of how the family is feeling at this point now that we've heard those closing arguments. And now let's get into the crux of what we actually heard inside court, starting with the state itself, really summarizing all the evidence that we've heard over the past 4 weeks, telling the courts that it was not the state's responsibility to prove beyond doubt that Shoba is implicated in this particular matter, but to show that he's implicated beyond reasonable doubt, saying that the evidence that they've brought before courts does show that Shoba is implicated in this matter, that he does have a case to answer to, and that he should be found guilty of the charge of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, as well as defeating the ends of justice, really relying not only on the testimony of the convicted killer, Muzikaise Malepane, in stating that Shoba ordered or hired him for the hit, but also saying that the cell phone records themselves do show that Shoba is somehow involved in this matter, because the main issue, the main crux of the issue, is the fact that the state is alleging that Shoba used 2 cell phone numbers, one in which he used to communicate with Malepane, and one which he used for his day-to-day business. But then that disputed number is the one where Malepane says he was in constant communication with Shoba. But let's just take a listen to what the state prosecutor had to say earlier this morning.
I rely again on the car track report, because it shows that his car switched off his ignition on the 4th of June at 13:23, 48 seconds. Now,
this is in your head?
Yes. I will go to, may I refer this honorable court to page number 7?
Yes.
The last paragraph on page number 7.
The last one. Yes.
Now, I want to emphasize the seconds here. This Honorable Court will see that the ignition was switched off at 13:23, 48 seconds. But prior to that, my lord, the disputed phone makes an outgoing call in that same area at 13:23, 42 seconds. In other words, 6 seconds before his car came to a halt, my lord, he also made a call, or it appears that there was a call from the disputed number to Mr. Malapane. Again, it's submitted with respect. This again illustrates the closeness, my lord, of his movement with this disputed number. Now, I'm going to request this Honorable Court to have regard thereof.
So cell phone data triangulation as well as records will clearly form a key part, or rather, because it's now at the end, has clearly been a key part of the state's case and even in their closing arguments. I'm wondering, though, how the defense has sought to counter what the state has put on the one side of the scales of justice.
What was quite interesting was that the defense was seemingly trying to put to the court that the state is solely relying on the confession of a convicted killer who they say is a habitual liar, who the court says the court just simply cannot rely on his evidence because his previous statements have shown that he does have a propensity to lie and that he seems to have a bias against Shoba. So the judge then asked, okay, but then what is that bias? What is it about Shoba that Malapane wants to implicate him so badly in this murder? The defense kind of dilly-dallying, I must say, around that issue as to what could that bias possibly be? What is the link between Shoba, Pule, as well as Malapane that would somehow want Malapane to try and convince the court that Shoba is implicated and is the one who actually ordered this hit. But the defense saying that it will be up to the court to decide on just how much testimony of Malapane is it's going to believe and take into consideration. But let's take a listen to Shoba's lawyer, Mr. Norman Makubela.
He submits that the phone, either the disputed phone or the one belonging to Mr. Shoba, interchangeably when one is not available, the other one calls.
Yeah.
Even on that basis alone, there is no evidence and credible evidence before court, based on what I will raise on my head, that even if there are calls that coincided with that set of scenario, it is in fact the accused that called Mr. Shoba on the disputed number. And then two, the accused has not been shy about accepting and admitting that he did at some stage communicate with Mr. Malapane using his registered phone.
Yeah.
So that if the undisputed phone coincides with the communication he has with Mr. with Mr. Malapane on the registered phone, it is not the only inference that can be drawn in the circumstances that would solely have been at least Mr. Shoba, and that the content is as claimed by Mr. Malapane.
All right, thank you for that update. That's ENCA's Slindelo Masikane at the High Court in Johannesburg there with an update on the closing arguments of both the state and the defense in the murder trial of Ndutugo Shoba in relation to the killing of Tshegofatso Pule. Now, judgment has been reserved, and I guess it's now, it's definitely in the hands of the acting judge, Stuart Wilson, who was presiding over this particular case.